Kia ora, I'm Erica Wilkinson, New Zealand's acting threatened species ambassador, and this is the Doc Sounds of Science podcast. Every episode, we talk about work being done behind the scenes by Doc's technical experts, scientists, rangers, and the experts in between. Kia ora, ko Erica Wilkinson tēnei. He kona I purangi tēnei, e pā ana ki ngā Sounds of Science. Today we're talking to Hana Harris, who is a biodiversity ranger in the beautiful Northland region. Kia ora, Hana.
Kia ora, ko Hana Harris tuku ingoa, he kaimahia hau ki te papa ata whai, ki te rohe o te pewharangi, ko tukuturanga he Kaitiaki kauri. So kia ora, I'm Hana, I'm a biodiversity ranger, mainly work in kauri protection up here in the beautiful Bay of Islands district.
Awesome. Hana is used to explaining kauri dieback to our international tourists, to school children, and to members of her local community. And now it's our turn. Hana is passionate about protecting the species for future generations and is going to get us excited about this mahi too. So welcome, Hana.
Sweet, thank you for having me.
So tell us about what you do at Doc.
So I've been with Doc for the past 3.5 years. I started as a summer ranger and eventually kind of hung around, and I then got a job as the kauri protection ranger up here, and basically did everything from community engagement through to soil sampling, and most recently I've just hopped over to a biodiversity job.
Amazing. And tell me about where you're based. It sounds like it's the most beautiful place in the world.
Yep, I have to agree. So I'm based up here in the Bay of Islands, and so it's the eastern side of Northland. It stretches from Taupo Bay down through to Kawakawa. We have obviously our beautiful marine environment, and then over to the west a bit we have the amazing Puketi and Omahuta forest, which is roughly 21,000 hectares of indigenous forest, and full of kauri.
Oh, sounds like paradise. So you say that you came over summer to a full-time role, and now how long have you been with Doc?
3.5 years. So I started as a summer ranger in the summer of 2018, 2019. Just basically got to work out over in the islands and a bit on tracks, and I looked after a campground in Puketi Forest, which was awesome. Pre-COVID, so there was a lot of people around.
Awesome. And what does a big day entail for you now?
I would say any big day is the day out in the bush. So we spend a bit of time, especially in Puketi and Omahuta, doing quite a lot of work around kauri. We're jumping into pig monitoring at the moment, so just trying to get an idea of how many pigs are in the forest. But basically anywhere, 6+ hours on foot, carrying around your packs. And that's probably a big day for me.
Sounds like quite a big day. So Hana, tell us about the process around possum monitoring.
Yeah, so possum monitoring is basically where there's been a lot of possum control in an area. So we recently did some possum monitoring out in Kōwhairoa, which is in the Whangaroa Harbour. And the local hapu out there have been doing really intensive possum control for the past, good few years. And so every year we go out and do the monitoring for them. And basically we head out in the morning on a boat, and it takes about 15 minutes to get out there. And once we're out there, we're given basically 200-meter lines, and we get about 3 lines each to do. And you have a hip chain that's attached around your waist, as well as a bum bag that has wax tags in it and some flagging tape and a vivid. And your hip chain, it has a pedometer, which measures your steps, so you know that you're doing 200 meters exact. And basically you walk to the start of a line, and in the hip chain it's got a bit of cotton in it, and you tie the cotton off to a tree. You grab your compass and you point in the right direction, and you basically walk straight for 200 meters until you finish your line. And every 20 meters you're chucking up a wax tag, which has got a scent of peanut butter on it. And the idea is that if there's possums in the area, they'll come along and have a little gnaw at it. And there's about 10 lines across that peninsula. And so by the end of it, it gives us a percentage of how many possums are in that area.
And are there possums at the moment in that area, or is it just making sure they don't come back?
So we had a really good result this time. So they got 0% of possums out there, which is probably a first in Northland. So that was a huge bit of a celebration for us and for them. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. It's always nice to deliver that kind of news to hapu.
That's great. And you're sure that they don't just not like peanut butter anymore?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they like peanut butter. Yeah.
So tell me about what drew you to conservation.
My father worked for DOC for about 15 years growing up. And so I guess conservation was always a thing that was quite natural for me to be interested in. I remember going to tons of events with him growing up, and I just have always, I was raised in the bush as a kid. I'm from Puketi Forest, which is now the forest that I work in. But yeah, spend our summers in the rivers and walking around barefoot in the bush. And so it kind of just carries with you. And I guess as a teenager, I kind of took a step back and then, yeah, in my early 20s, I've rekindled this love of conservation and just being outdoors.
I mean, what a childhood and what a way to set it off.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So, Hana, did you study conservation or in a field like that?
Yeah, so back in 2018 I did a course in environmental management and I loved it. I mean, obviously it's something that I'm interested in, but I struggled a bit in the classroom. I'm quite a hands-on kind of learner. And so I walked in one day and chucked in my CV at the local doc office and just asked for anything, any sort of job that was going. And thankfully there was a summer ranger job. And of course they knew Dad because a lot of the people that I work with have known me since I was born. So yeah, it was just an opportunity there for me to grab, and I jumped at it.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, tell me about your kauri dieback work. And we'll start simple. So what is kauri and what is kauri dieback?
Yeah, so I guess kauri is probably New Zealand's most iconic tree, at least up here in Northland, we think it is. And its scientific name is Agathis australis. And then if you turn to kauri dieback, its scientific name is Phytophthora agathidicida. So that Agatha is kind of, talking back to its scientific name. And Phytophthora is Latin for plant destroyer. So straight to the point, plant destroyer, that's what it does. And there's lots of Phytophtheras around the world, but this one just attacks kauri that we know of. And yeah, I guess going back to Māori's relationship with kauri, it's always been one of those cornerstone species. It was used as waka before settlers came to New Zealand. And then once settlers arrived, of course, there was a whole lot of logging that took place, especially up here in Northland. And we saw a lot of kauri forests really get, destroyed, I guess. And you can still see the remains of those days with old logging roads and some of the scars on the trees and things like that. But kauri dieback itself, basically what it is it's a water mold. It's spread through the movement of soil. So it's microscopic. You can't see it. Basically, you could be walking through the bush, have a bit of dirt on your foot or on your boot, and that's got the disease on it. It comes into contact with kauri roots, and as soon as it does, it releases spores, and these spores basically attack the root system, and it stops the tree's ability of taking nutrients from the soil up through the tree. So basically, it sucks the tree dry. That's why it's called dieback, and you'll see, you'll see some of the symptoms. Bleeding around the base, so it would be in a bit of an upside down U shape and it will come all the way to the base of the tree. You'll see a bit of the canopy dieback, so the leaves might start yellowing a little bit, and eventually the leaves will drop off, and over time the tree will die, sadly, and there's no cure for it, which is really sad. I mean, there's things happening, trials happening, but basically once a tree's infected, it's it. Yeah, pretty sad. And I guess on that note as well, the term kauri dieback, we're trying to steer away from using that word because it's got quite a negative, feel about it. And we're trying to change people's mindset from kauri dieback to kauri protection or kauri order, kauri well-being. Kaitiaki kauri. More of a positive spin, I guess.
And whereabouts Is it just in Northland? Is it further?
Basically, anywhere where there's kauri. So the range for kauri is basically from the Waikato north, and it's found, I mean, you look at the Waitakere Ranges, it's found everywhere through there. We've got one known infected site in the middle of Puketi Forest, which is super strange that it's right in the middle and it hasn't been found anywhere else. Yeah, over in Waipoa Forest as well, they've got it pretty bad over there. And it's showing up in, farmlands and things like that. I guess, yeah, these trees are so vulnerable, you got trucks going through or people walking through or cattle or pigs or whatever that can spread this disease. And bit scary.
Yeah, very scary. And it sounds really critical that we can stop it. So what kind of work is happening right now to help manage this problem?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work, and it's actually quite a busy space, the kauri space. I would say one of the main things that's really awesome that's happening is a lot of advocacy work. So we've got a really awesome Jobs for Nature project up here in our district called Kaitiaki Kauri, and they were set up specifically for advocacy work. So they're basically getting out there on the tracks, talking with the public and speaking to marae and speaking to schools. I think that's the main probably is that all the advocacy stuff. And then, of course, we've got a whole lot of soil sampling. So back in 2017 and 2018, they did a survey, an aerial survey of all kauri lands in New Zealand, and basically picked up a whole lot of trees kauri trees that were dead, or they looked a little bit sick, and they would give us those coordinates, and we would walk in with our GPSs and soil sample those trees. And so, yeah, from all of that sampling, we got some good results and some not so good results.
So I think what's terrifying about this is that you can't see it. So because it's microscopic, me walking through the bush could unknowingly bring it with me and be affecting different areas, and I'd be devastated if that was the case. So we need to see ourselves in the solution, do you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the best thing that we could do is educate people, right? And especially if you're showing up to the forests, we have this saying that is arrive clean, leave clean. It's as simple as that. If you're showing up to the bush and you see a hygiene station there, just use it. It takes 5 minutes, if that. Or even better, clean your stuff at home. We've just upgraded a whole lot of tracks in our district to prevent, people standing on kauri routes. And so, yeah, I guess stick to open tracks. Don't go off the track. Yeah, and I guess the hygiene stations are basically a boot cleaning station where you go through and you can have a seat. There's a little seat there. You can sit down and just scrub your boots. And it's got a sterigene, which is a disinfectant, like a hospital-grade disinfectant, and that will actually kill off the spores of the disease.
So bottom line is arrive clean and leave clean. Is the most important thing. So I've never used one of these stations before. I have seen them and I feel like I'm going to lose a foot in them. They've got the big brushes. Can you tell me how to work it?
Yeah, so they're pretty straightforward. So if you see a hygiene station, you're coming through, it has instructions. First thing is you'll come across a little brush, and basically you can choose whether you want to take a seat on the hygiene station and use the hand tools, or you can use the railing and just steady yourself and use the brush. It's a bit of a rotating brush. And the key thing is to make sure you're getting all the dirt off and look. So inspect your shoes, make sure that you do have all the dirt off. And then the next step is there's a bit of a treadle. It's quite fun. Kids like to jump on it, but please don't, because they cost a lot of money. Basically, this treadle has a 2% mix of sterigene with water, and that'll blast up onto your shoes underneath, and it'll basically, I guess it's like an extra layer of protection. But if you've already got clean shoes, going through the hygiene station should be a breeze.
So while it is a really scary disease, it is something that we can manage through stuff like this, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say the key thing is really making sure that your equipment is clean. I focused on boots with a hygiene station, but I mean everything, your hiking poles, your tent pegs, your backpacks, and it's trucks, vehicles. That's a huge thing as well. People love 4-wheel driving, but yeah, I guess it's like an old New Zealand thing to just like, let's go 4-wheel driving in the Hilux, and like the old Barry Crump Toyota adverts. and then they just, they rep it around town. It's super, I mean, I love four-wheel driving, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of, it's just a risk nowadays. You never know what's in that soil. But yeah, so all equipment, and it's really important when you're moving from forest to forest, because you could go into an infected forest and not realize, and then you're not cleaning your stuff, and you take it into a forest that doesn't have any kauri dieback, and you've just taken it over there. Yeah.
So would you say that's the most common misconception people have about kauri dieback, is that they just don't realize that it's there?
Yeah, I'd say so. That kind of lack of education, and I guess it's up to us, our government agencies and that have voices that, we have all these outlets that we can talk about this kind of stuff. And so we need to get that message out there, that this is what's happening, and this is how it's happening, and this is why. Yeah, so you can't fault people for something that they don't know, but yeah, education.
Yeah, definitely. And do you find that many people that you talk to don't know what it is?
I would say in recent years, since I've brought it up, among friends, or even I went to physio today and the guy knew what it was. So
hey.
I would say in recent years, more and more people have learned about it. But I mean, before I even started working at Doc, none of my friends knew about kauri dieback. I knew very little about it. And so, yeah, I guess with that funding that we've got over the past few years, that message has gotten out there. I mean, I started with my kauri job. I started working on tracks, just as track ambassador. And I would stand there for, hours of the day and just talk to anyone who came along about kauri dieback and kauri and how important it is that we spread this message.
Hana, I've heard that there is a kauri costume. Could you please describe that to me or demonstrate it? Can we put it up on Google later today?
Oh, man. Yeah, the classic kauri costume. So basically, it's actually really cool. So it's a very tall, long kauri tree, and I've taken it around to a few daycares with me, and one side has got a healthy-looking kauri, and the other side's got a bit of the dieback symptoms on it. And so, yeah, it's quite a kind of funny thing. You get the preschool teachers to dress up in this costume, and all the kids running around. And I think there's even a bird's nest on the top with some fake eggs. It's just, it's classic. It's so good.
That's such a great way to get them to remember it. Advocacy for the win.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Hana, in your summer ranger role or your Kaitiaki kauri role, did you have pamphlets? Are you, waiting for people to walk past? How are you easing them into hearing all of this information?
Yeah, so I had the works out in the bush. I mean, we have this one track, and it's just basically a 15-minute boardwalk loop. And cruise buses would come in, from the cruise ships. You'd get 200 plus people a day coming through this walk. And so we have this one section of the track where there's kauri surrounding me. And there was a bit of a table in the middle of this part of it. And I would have pamphlets and posters, and I have massive printouts of the disease. And basically I would be there to complement the bush. So I'd just be able to spark up a conversation with anyone and be like, hey, here's some kauri trees, and have you heard of kauri dieback? This is what it is. And, just showing people what it looks like. And then you'd get people going around the track, and they'd come back and be like, oh, this tree down there's got a bit of bleeding, and, oh, that one looks a little bit, it's just, they just immediately took it on as soon as I had these, these pictures. And I had merchandise as well, I had the old caps with the kauri on it, and little tote bags. So, yeah. Really fun.
That's brilliant. What important work as well. Did you have a costume?
No, I was in the old doc uniform,
No bird's nest on top of the head.
No, just my hair.
So, Hana, I've heard that the Northland iwi, Ngāti Wai and Ngāti Hine are looking into how whalebone could treat kauri dieback. Is that a conversation that has come up in Hui?
Yeah, so a few months ago we actually had a wānanga. It was really a refreshing wānanga. We have a whole lot of meetings all the time about, I guess, Western science, and all about, that side of things, and we got to find a cure and all this. And we had this one hui actually at the hut in Puketi, and we had the campfire going, and we just had some kai and just talked for hours about all the different stories, and we had hapu that were represented from the whole forest. I mean, there's a lot of hapu that, whakapapa back to Puketi and Omahuta forest. And we had a kaumatua that came along talking about some of his mahi that he's been doing with whalebone and kānuka. Super interesting. And it definitely needs a space to have that conversation, I think. And I mean, think about all the resourcing that we put to Western science, And it was a really interesting conversation about how mātauranga Māori and Western science are different, and that, people should accept that they're different, and it's okay that they're different, which I think is, it's absolutely true, and they both need their own space. So, yeah, I'm super interested in it, and I'm happy to support it, I guess, in my role and my work, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
So why whalebone for kauri?
I guess, and I'm not 100% confident actually sharing the story. If you ever get up to Tāne Mahuta, Te Roroa, they have Kaitiaki out on the tracks, and they share the story, and it's just beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful kōrero.
So Hana, you must have every day as such a great day on the job, but do any stand out for you?
Yeah, for sure. I've got a few. I've got about probably 3 great days that I think about all the time. So the first one was back in 2019. So this is just, I guess a few months before COVID. For Conservation Week, we had a evening at Puketi, and we called it Ngā Tonga Kōrero o Puketi. And basically we had ourselves and local community groups, conservation community groups, local hapu. We had the scouts because they were, a big part in setting up Conservation Week. And we had an evening where we basically had a whole lot of we had demos with conservation dogs. We have this like cutout of a possum on this massive sheet of wood, and it's got little holes in it with some leg hold traps, and you got to throw the tennis balls like in the traps, and really good food. We had a lot of puppets and stuff that kids would make, like bats and everything, and we had like a running slide of a whole lot of old logging photos of the forest, and we had guided walks with some of the really experienced and knowledgeable staff. They took out families and that through a nature trail, and it was just a really awesome night. I was super proud of it. I think about that all the time. That was probably a definite highlight for when I first started in doc.
Oh my gosh, what an incredible advocacy kind of evening for everyone as well. I'm surprised you could see it whilst you were in the kauri costume though.
I wasn't rocking the costume that night, unfortunately.
Alas. Any others that spring to mind? You said you have 3. I want to hear another one.
So another one was when we actually helped pull out a waka out of Omahuta forest. So there was an old kauri log that had been lying down in state, and her name at the time was Taniwha. And a crew went in there, local hapu, and started carving it in the forest. And then a few months later, we all got together, local hapu, and we pulled it out. This waka that we split into 3 parts, and we pulled it out one day, and it was just so nice. I mean, we had beautiful karakia in the morning, and everyone was laughing, and it was, you'd think it would be super heavy, but for whatever reason, the karakia must have been good because that thing went up the hill pretty fast. And and now it's down just below our office. Actually, they're starting carving, and hopefully it's ready by next Waitangi Day or sometime around then. But that's a highlight. I mean, I'm probably never ever going to get to do that again in my life. So, super special.
That's so special to have known it from concept as well, like right from the start when they brought it out.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've actually got some photos of my brother and myself as little kids standing on that log. So,
and that was your hapu as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I whakapapa back to that area, and it was actually a gift from our hapu to Ngāti Rihia, which is another hapu on the eastern side. Beautiful story.
Hana, that sounds meaningful on so many different levels. That must have been quite an emotional experience for you.
Yeah, I think any time I get to work, wearing multiple hats is a special time. I mean, I guess it's one thing to be there and working for Doc, but to be there as Doc, but also local hapu. I mean, how many people get that opportunity. Super special.
And you've just told me recently that you are only 24 and you are incredibly accomplished for being only 24. But are there any days that you can think of where your team made a discovery or you made a discovery?
Yeah. So when was it? Back in 2020. So short-tailed bats, they're only found in Omahuta Forest. And they were found there a long time ago. I think it was in the 70s. This kauri fell down. And there was a bat population living in that kauri. And so they went in, they're like, oh my gosh, there's a whole lot of short-tailed bats in here. And ever since then, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of predator control in Omahuta until recently, because in 2020, our bio team found a huge bat roost of short-tailed bats in a rata tree. There's a huge tree. And that was, I mean, I remember the team coming back that day and everyone was just super stoked and excited that, you know, we have all these bats and there's hundreds in this one tree. And then we kept finding other little roost trees around the area. And I mean, they can travel so far, you know, up to 20 Ks every night. So you can just imagine how much roost trees we were finding, and we still have no idea how widespread they are. So every year we do that monitoring. But yeah, that was huge. That was really huge. And also to take that back to the local hapu, and we took them out there one day and did a bit of a hikoi out to the track, and so many questions and everyone's smiling, and you know, it's just so awesome. Yeah.
Oh, isn't it amazing how a native species can bring everyone together as well? It's like such a sense of, you know, that's so special, that taonga.
Yeah, for sure. And this, I mean, people don't even know that we have bats, you know, a lot of the time. And they're so tiny and they're only our only mammal species, and super special.
And they're pretty different as well compared to
very
other
different
kind of bats.
Yeah.
I love that this doesn't even make it into your kind of weird and funny days at work. So you found all of those bats. So tell me now about some of the weird and funny things that have happened to you and many of your roles.
Yeah, so I mean, there's always funny moments, and they always happen to be with the public every time. There's this one particular beach on one of the islands, and every time I've gone there, something strange has happened. The first time was in summer, and I walked around the corner, and there was just like an entire family just naked, like lying on the beach, you know, like just stark as, and I had like a bright orange dock. You know, I couldn't just slowly back away and act like I didn't see anything. And they all just like got up and started running around. I was like, oh my God. You know, I just had to like turn away and quickly, oh God. And then around the same area, there's this one guy who's known to people in the office. He just has his yacht and he just walks around, you know, in the nude. Just flashing
Is it
around.
a nudist beach? No.
No, it's not. It's a public beach, like on an island that's got a lot of visitors every year. But it always happens around the same place.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a website somewhere saying this is where we go. Wow, that took a turn. I didn't expect this to go that way.
Yeah, no, there's a few of those ones, a few of those stories.
I believe it.
This one time we were out in Whangamumu, and it wasn't a super busy track that day, but it happened to, we were walking down to the beach and we heard this rustling in the bush next to us, and we were like, what was that? And so we turned around, and there was this guy who was, you know, relieving.
Not nude.
He was relieving himself in the bush of the track, and if he didn't move, he wouldn't have seen anything. But yeah, then we just saw this person running through the bush with toilet paper trailing behind them. It was, yeah.
Which is not the dark message, by the way. No, please.
Exactly. And there was a lure at the side of the track that we just put in. I mean, yeah. But these are the things you see. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So comparatively or completely flipped, are there moments where you're like, I can't believe this is my job? Not following someone around when they've got toilet paper in their hand, but are there other times you can think of that you're like, I get to do this? How cool is this?
I think just any time I'm out, you know, working outside. I remember when I first started and, you know, going to all these new places, and it was just like, oh my gosh, you know, some of the views, people pay to come out, you know, to these places, and, you know, you get to go out there and you're just like, even just cleaning a hut, you know, at Cape Brett, and you're like, oh, there's the hole in the rock, and oh, there's some seals, there's some penguins, and just the views and yeah, I mean, getting to go in the middle of a bush that people don't go into and seeing all these waterfalls, and it's just super, super special, all those places.
That is so special, and so many of us don't get out to those areas that you see on like a daily basis. That must be incredible. Hannah, do you have any favorite places, or is it just everywhere that you go?
I mean, I'd say everywhere, but every time we get to work out in the islands is pretty special because there we have 7 pest-free islands out in the bay. So they've got, the bird life is just incredible. And in particular, I love Moturua Island, and we get to go, into all the catchments and stuff to do our trapping and tracking cards and everything. And there's just like deafening noises, all the saddlebacks just like right in your ear, shouting alarms, and then you have tui swooping, and there's even like a ruru that comes down and says hello every time. I mean, you don't get that on the mainland, and it's really awesome to take people out there, and then you're like, we could have this on the mainland, and this is what it could sound like one day, hopefully.
That's true. I remember on Te Hauturua Toi, it's just like if you just stand there and just listen, that's what we should do if we had all the money in the world. We'd take everyone out there and just stand there and listen and be like, we could have this on the mainland, predator-free 2050. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in conservation, it's not always good news all the time, as we know. What has been one of the most disappointing discoveries for you?
Yeah, that'll have to be back in 2019, just before we were breaking for summer. We did, all that soil sampling that I was talking about from the aerial surveys, and we went in to do this one particular site in Puketi, and it was right in the middle of Puketi, and these trees were dead, but we had sampled so many other trees before that were dead, and they came back, negative. And we sampled these trees, and the results came back the week before we went on break, and they came back positive. And I guess coming from that forest, having that connection from, whakapapa, it was, I remember hearing that news, and I was like, oh, I just felt like crying, It's, your forest, and now it's got this disease, and you don't know how far spread it's, in the forest, and how did it get into the middle of the forest if it's not on the outskirts. And some of the trees that we sampled had like old gum bleeds because they used to illegally bleed kauri back in the, the 1920s for their gum. And so these trees had scars, all across the bottoms. And we found this one tree particular up the ridge on the other side, and it just had a huge slash, through it, like it had been sawed, but then they just kind of gave up on the tree. And so, I kind of spent like that Christmas, New Year's break just thinking about the fact that, we had this infected site now in this forest. And then the first week that we came back to work, we went straight back in to sample it again just in case. And it was positive. And then having to spread that, that news of this positive site in this forest to hapu and to all the community groups and to contacts, just around the country. And it was super tough, I guess, being on the receiving side of the information as hapu, but also the one that actually went in and did the sampling and then has to go through the process of, consulting and So that was a really bummer of a day.
That's heartbreaking, especially because you're trying so hard to manage this issue as well, and you're so connected to this particular place.
We did have a karakia the second time we went to sample it. We had a karakia before we, did any sampling.
Yeah. So, Hannah, just listening to you, it makes me so frustrated that we've treated kauri so badly. In the 1920s, people were bleeding these trees. In the 80s, we only just stopped logging. And now we are spreading kauri dieback by not just taking 5 minutes to wash our gear before we go into the forest. And then, of course, there's that flow-on effect when kauri are sick, and that effect to the entire forest.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of the same. I feel a bit frustrated, but I'm never hopeless. I've always got hope that things will get better, or that people are going to be starting to get more aware, or that the forest is always going to be there in some capacity. And I guess, going back to what you were saying about, we've put Kauri through a lot, but, it's actually these whole forests that have been put through, plowed, logging roads chucked through. And it wasn't just Kauri that was being logged. It was, rimu and tōtara, all these other trees that were getting logged. But imagine a forest without Kauri. I couldn't imagine that. And so, and I guess Kauri, in order for Kauri to survive, we need to look after the forest as a whole, because they all hold each other up, underneath all the roots that, that are connected. And so I guess the forest as a whole we need to look after. And I guess, yes, we need to look after Kauri and we need to stop the spread of Kauri dieback, but we also need to think about the forest as a whole and, talking about pigs and possums and goats and rats and cats and all that. But yeah, I guess to save one species, you have to think about the whole forest.
I love the hope that you have. And you're absolutely right about, as we make people more aware, and all those kids with the preschool teacher dressing up in the Kauri costume, they're going to grow up to save these forests as well. I love that. That's pretty cool. It's so important that we remember, while there is no cure, we do know how to manage it, and we have been, successfully managing it at places. So what do people need to remember if they're going into the forest in the north?
I guess that key message, arrive clean, leave clean, that's the main one. Stick to the tracks, stick to open tracks. These tracks have been upgraded for a reason. Don't go off the track, as tempting as it is to go and hug the Kauri tree. If you can't reach it from the track, just don't go near it. Clean your gear, especially if you're going from forest to forest. And spread the message, not the disease.
Oh,
That's a good one, eh? It's a good one.
Is it yours? Is it real?
I don't know. Did I hear that from
We
someone,
should make
maybe?
it real. And what's one thing that you wish everyone listening would tell their friends?
I would just say that, there's this disease called Kauri dieback, and it attacks Kauri trees, and it's really simple to clean your gear and make sure that you clean them before you go into any Kauri lands or any Kauri forests.
And stop spreading the plant destroyer, which is a very cool name, but not a very cool disease.
Yeah, exactly.
Hana, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, and I've learned so much this episode that I didn't know, and I'm going to now go and spread all of the words and none of the disease. Thank you.
All good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Erica Wilkinson, and this has been the Doc Sounds of Science podcast. This show is available wherever you get your podcasts, or you can stream it off our website, doc.gov.nz. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and show our hard-working guests some love. Ka kite!